Well, thank you for joining. My name is BJ Murphy. I'm the host of this series of candidate interviews. I'm also the publisher of Neuse.com. We've got a lot of great things happening. I know the 2020 general election is underway. Some absentee balloting is people are already starting to turn in their votes, but we want to make sure you have every opportunity to get to know the candidates as the best we can. And with that, want to make sure that you go ahead and bookmark Tuesday, November 3rd. Certainly that is Election Day, but at 7:30 p.m. on Election Day, make sure you tune in live on Facebook right here with Neuse as we bring to you our general election results, the coverage and the results that evening. So with us today, I'm really excited to be joined by Senator Jim Perry. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, BJ.
So tell us, jump right into it. You're representing Wayne and Lenoir County. Why are you seeking office again?
Well, I've tried to learn a lot, over the last roughly 2 years, and I still have the same mission that I went up there with. Being from Eastern North Carolina, I think that we've missed some opportunities over time, and I think that if we want different results, we have to try different things, and I want to try to help Eastern North Carolina. If you live east of Interstate 95 and you grew up here, I think everyone has a sense or a thought that we have been somewhat left behind. So I want to do everything I can to help the rural parts of our state, primarily here in the east.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about certainly the pandemic and its impact on schools. Tell me, how do you feel about the talk of reopening schools, especially in its impact on high school and maybe even college sports?
Sure. So just on the topic of elementary schools first, I think that it's a difficult topic for many. If you look at the polling data on it, you see how it's so dispersed. I do believe, and I know that especially K through 3, if those kids don't have the attention they need and start reading early, they miss those building blocks and they're forever left behind. And educators, talk to me about this a lot. So I think it's critically important to have them in the classroom. I think that as community members, we could come up with plans, given the flexibility to let the people who are genuinely concerned about their health. We're still going to need people, handling remote instruction. Maybe they should be the ones to do that. Then we have teachers that want to be back in the classroom. I just think that with the flexibility that we've seen, it should roll over into education, and we need to accommodate the parents and the children, and I think we can do so while still providing a safe options for instructors, for the teachers. A little different in high school. I think we've seen several local facilities that do have the ability to provide good quality online education. They've been doing it already. We've got proof of concept. I think it's easier for older students, not necessarily easy, but easier. Mm-hmm. So I think we have more flexibility there. College sports, I'm glad to see the decisions change, to allow that. I think as much normalcy as we can get into safely, we need to do it. Mm-hmm. I think people are hungry for that, and we need to find a way to move forward.
And speaking of the pandemic and its impact on policy, talk a little bit about the state budget. There was a lack of a budget passed last year. Now we've got COVID on top of that. What kind of cuts or adjustments do you think need to be made to the state budget?
So I think we're still early to know, exactly what kind of revenue picture we're looking at. We know there's going to be impacts. You see that already happening in the university system. We know there's going to be some shortfalls. We've heard projections anywhere from about $4.3 to $6 billion. I don't think it's going to be on the bad end. I think that people stayed home and continued to buy things, the ones that could. But remember, everyone who was on unemployment, every small business owner that closed, they've been impacted, and the economy's been a little propped up, by some federal stimulus money and unemployment. I think it's going to continue to have a drag. That is going to impact the state budget, not just the next year, but I would guess the next 3 to 5 years. We already had shortfalls at DOT, and then people were not driving. We were not collecting gas tax, highway use tax the way that we would historically. So there's going to be a significant impact. Anyone that think about expanding state budget right now, they're thinking the wrong way. It's just mathematically impossible. We will see reductions. It's just a matter of, how bad it's going to be and where. We do have a rainy day fund. I think we've had some responsible budgets, and I think we're well positioned as well as you can be, right, for something of this nature. But it's going to be bumpy.
And one last question on the pandemic and education as it relates to rural broadband access to internet. I know there's been a lot of kids at home, a lot of families at home. Tell us where you stand. I mean, you represent a district that has a lot of rural communities in it. Tell us a little bit about your support of rural broadband internet.
So, I think, first of all, I'm 100% in support of it. We need it. I think our world looks different than a lot of the more populated areas. The Great Grant Program has about a $15 million recurring line item. We had put an additional $9 million in it earlier this year. Most recently, we allocated another $30 million into that program. This is in addition to $30 million for student devices, $11 million for school access, $1 million for access points to be put on buses to drive out to rural areas and park as hotspots. I think faculty got about $5 million. Now, these are direct appropriations for these items. In addition, you've got a couple of $1 million that went to, I get my counties mixed up because I have two, but went out directly to the county for reimbursements that could be used for additional things. I think a lot of support going out for internet and broadband, but what really frustrates folks is it does not happen overnight. It takes time to put the infrastructure in place. You have to have third-party providers that want to do that. So it's not a abracadabra type of moment, but it is significant investment moving us in the right direction.
All right. And, thinking of the general election coming up, people are starting to vote now via absentee ballots. Going to the polls here real soon. Not too long ago, the voters of North Carolina passed a voter ID constitutional amendment. Tell us where you stand on that issue.
So I believe that voter ID is reasonable and important, and the vast majority of North Carolinians do also, as was evidenced by the passage of the constitutional amendment. The legislation that implemented voter ID was enjoined by a federal judge, so we do not have voter ID in this election, but we were able to pass legislation in the short session addressing some of that. It was bipartisan legislation that addressed concerns that had been expressed before, opened up different forms of IDs, and made changes to election law. So I think the integrity of your elections, regardless of your political party or background, the integrity of your elections are very important. And I think that everyone wants to feel that a fair process was had and there was no monkey business going on. Unfortunately, we're in the news right now with some situations that have popped up, and I think that will continue to be a story.
And give us a final argument as to why people at home, our viewers, our readers, should support you in your candidacy.
Well, I would appreciate having the support. I think being up in Raleigh for the last couple of years has allowed me to have a baseline of learning that no one else has. I laugh now when I hear candidates for any office bang a table and talk about what they're going to do as a freshman. I'll tell you as a freshman what you do. You learn, and you try to figure out what room to go to and not to get lost. There's a certain amount of baseline knowledge that you need. I love Eastern North Carolina. I'm from here. I understand our people. I represent two poor counties. So the needs that we have for me to represent, they don't fit in a neat box with some other areas, but I'm very comfortable with that. I'm comfortable advocating for things that I think will make a difference in our communities, and I'll continue working hard as I have over the last 2 years if I have the good fortune to be elected and sent back to Raleigh.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Senator Perry, and thank you for joining us. And we also appreciate your willingness to serve. Also, thank you so much to you at home for watching this broadcast here on Neuse News. Don't forget that on October 15th, early voting starts, and Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. And that evening at 7:30 p.m., you'll be able to watch the general election results show right here live on Facebook on a Neuse News Facebook page. So make sure you say a special thank you to all our sponsors as you see them that night and throughout the rest of our coverage. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you go to neusenews.com, subscribe to our newsletter. It's free every single morning, 7 a.m., all the day's top headlines, and even the last couple of days as well. All that is free for you. And lastly, if you haven't already, we actually from time to time send out breaking news text alerts. That's free as well. All you've got to do is text the keyword NN to 484848, and you can get on our breaking news text alert system. Again, thank you, Senator Perry, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
And thank everybody for watching. Until next time, thank you so much.